multi-billion-dollar grocery business already, growing very fast. So it's not an idea; it's a real business and it's growing. And yet we barely tapped into the leverage of connecting pretty much what we know how to do well with all those couriers, all those consumers. And there are merchant partners all over the world that already before the pandemic needed marketplaces like ours, but now need it more than ever. So it's really that our challenge is really internal. The plan makes perfect sense, and what we bring to the table is insights, technology, engineering, also some business skills and leadership, and it's been amazing so far. Moving from startup to being acquired by a large company, obviously there's more bureaucracy and there's a little bit of consensus building and things like that I'm trying to figure out as a founder. But overall, the experience of working with Uber has been as good as that first experience with the Rides app many years ago. So.
And when you launched Cornershop and when you first started 7 years ago, did you have acquisition in mind? Like was that an end goal that you were thinking about as a founder, or not really?
Founders can never admit to that, though. You have to say that you're going to take it all the way and IPO and conquer the world, and everything else is a complete failure. So I won't confess to what we actually thought back then. But obviously it's a path, and we've been very lucky and very grateful. It's amazing. The reason we launched Chile in Mexico on the very first day of launching our business, because we wanted to be multi-time zone, multi-language, multi-currency, just have that in our DNA. We picked Chile because it's our home market as a Chilean company, and we picked Mexico because we read that back then Mexico City was the biggest city on earth for Ubering trips. And Mexico's always had a very lagging e-commerce industry, way behind on the traditional, more like Amazon-like retail. And I had personally been involved in a startup building e-commerce for Mexico, and it was slow, so we would have never thought of Mexico if it wasn't for Uber, right? And it made sense that people want that convenience, and so anyway, so then ending up being part of Uber it's been great. Couldn't have had a better outcome.
That's encouraging, I think, for a lot of the founders in the audience, maybe, or people working at startups. Nancy, as the journalist on the panel, I think that you can speak more openly than maybe some of the founders would be able to about some of the more controversial issues in this industry. So I'm wondering if you can talk about one of the biggest issues that makes headlines, which is labor. So what is sort of happening with labor in this space? Because as delivery becomes faster and you're seeing more, competition, it's a really tight labor market. There are fewer and fewer people who are available to do these jobs. And what are you seeing and what are you hearing from some of the companies about being able to get workers, keep them happy?
Labor is a big problem in every sector. Retail, grocery, restaurants. So it's no different in the gig economy. I think what you're seeing is some of the model is changing, especially in the rapid delivery space. Especially the European models that are coming here in the New York area, they're actually moving away from gig, workers. They're W2 employees. I know Gorillas is doing that in New York, and even DoorDash in the DashMart model in New York, where they're doing more ultra-fast delivery, have W2 workers, which is a stretch for Uber because like all the other third parties, they usually do courier. So I think that is a sign of a shift perhaps in changing, that maybe the model might change, but are gig workers going to go away? I don't think so. The incentives have to be there. But the big challenge overall is how do you make all this profitable? I mean, that's still the number one big question out there for every model out there, which is why you see more of a white label operations that help kind of work a little bit both for the delivery operator, for the online ordering app, and for the traditional grocer. So I think there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out all across the base. But on the labor part, the issues will remain. You've got to have the incentives there for the careers.
I saw you nodding your head a little bit, Bobby. Can you tell us a little about your model? Because as you said, you are having the stores themselves pack the orders. But who is bringing the orders to the customers, and how are you sort of thinking about that workforce?
Yeah, so on our platform, the stores pack their own orders, which was great when we saw the COVID spike because we were able to grow, 10,000x in a short term because they just switched the employees to online orders. We're very much focused on efficiency so they can get more out of their existing workforce. A lot of the ways that we integrate into the platform, but on the delivery side, we integrate with multiple delivery networks. Actually, Uber is one of our partners that does some of our deliveries. So we don't have to worry about that as much because we're leveraging third parties. But efficiency for us still matters because there's a labor shortage, and that labor shortage, it makes it a little more friction to getting merchants online because they may not have the bandwidth to take on the packaging. So there's pros and cons. If you have your own shoppers, the stores are going to say, okay, great. You can pick it for me. I don't have the people to do it. So I think it rubs both ways, but ours, we're more focused on how do we make it more efficient for the store so they can handle it.
David, do you have couriers who don't want to work during finals?
Absolutely. Yeah, so a few things were mentioned, like labor and classification and also profitability. I think there's many ways to skin cat. I never understood that expression, but I think the fact that we empower college students to serve other college students is a super powerful model for profitability and efficiency. They understand, they know every alleyway, every door code like the back of their hands, they live in the area, they're able to deliver an order of magnitude more orders per hour because it's vertically integrated, they're all W2 employees, and they get to work with their friends and have a really good time. So I think part of that profitability story is like, yeah, right now our selection is a convenience store. We feel like a 7-Eleven, but Amazon started like a bookstore. And one day, my vision for the company is very clear. We're capturing young people's hearts now while they're in college in the most formative years of their lives, and eventually change the way they eat, which is the only way to impact the environment.
Oskar, I also want to ask you about labor because I think one thing that I found interesting about what Nancy said is that she's talking about a shift from contracting to employees, but Cornershop actually did the opposite, right? When you first started, all the couriers were employees, right? And then as you grew, you eventually had more contractors. So can you talk about why you choose to make that shift?
First of all, wow, like you knew that. Amazing. So we indeed started with employees in Mexico and Chile doing pick, pack, and delivery. We imagined that it would be very hard to offer a good quality experience and truly on-demand experience at all times if we couldn't count on reliable supply, which is true. And we thought that no way to have reliable supply is to have employees. And long story short, 1.5 or so years into the business, we realized that we suspected that benefits of having contracted would probably be better for everyone involved. And here we are with shoppers, as we call them, earning more, significantly more, and service is better and faster and more reliable. And so definitely, I know there's two sides to every coin, and there's definitely a negative aspect of not saving for a rainy day or not having insurance, and these changes in many jurisdictions are very different from each other. But overall, the positive aspects of the gig economy, which I don't personally love, I think if you talk to couriers or drivers or any of these platforms, by far outweighs the negatives. And I think companies like Uber, Uber's taking a lead in like redefining what the independent contractor model should be, and working with governments and municipalities across the world. And so again, there's two sides to every coin. It's a big topic in this industry. I personally feel very good about the earnings opportunities that we offer. I almost always talk to Uber drivers. I talk to the shoppers that deliver orders, and so I think I feel very confident in saying that I think it's definitely a model that's here to stay. Although it might evolve, like everything else on Earth.
Nancy, speaking of sort of what regulators are doing, as Oskar mentioned, can you talk about some of the potential headwinds, especially in the ultra-fast delivery space? I don't think that there's too much regulation coming for just normal grocery delivery, but can you talk about a little bit about what's been happening in New York City and what some of the concerns there are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the pleasure of being in New York a couple months ago. I'm based actually out here in Southern California, by the way. And I toured GoPuff and I toured a Gorillas, like they call them dark stores. And these guys move fast. They use e-bikes. They promised at the time delivery in 10, 15 minutes. But there's this battle going on in New York where now there's legislation brewing where they want to stop this 10-minute advertising, 10, 15-minute delivery. And so that's legislation that's in the works right now. And at least Gorillas told me last week that they actually stopped, they pivoted and they've stopped really marketing themselves as 10 minutes. Even there's a danger with the e-bikes. They say they put the couriers at first because that's I've watched them. You got to grab, the order comes in and then someone grabs all the food on the shelf and they throw it in the bag and then the e-bike courier is there waiting. And that's one of the reasons why they hire full-time workers, because you really do need that reliable person who's there all the time as opposed to a gig worker. So I see it's kind of more of a hybrid, by the way, going back to the labor model. But on Rapid, I think it seems to work better. But yeah, it's definitely evolving and changing, and then it's really not all about delivery. Part of that big number that I just said at the beginning, the $100 billion e-commerce business, that includes pickup. And I don't think we talk a lot about pickup, but I think we all learned the importance of curbside pickup during the pandemic and the convenience of that, and especially in the suburbs. And so now in New York, we're seeing the rapid delivery players now starting to promote that they offer pickup, that you can go in and order from your phone on the app still and have that food ready to go, and you can grab it on the way to your apartment or to wherever you're going. But yeah, the headwinds on legislation and the speed and the marketing, it works in Europe, but I don't know necessarily if that works, maybe in the US here. The other problem is that because people really want their groceries in demand all the time. I know when I did some interviews, the Gorilla CEO told me that he was going to change consumer habits, that he was going to change how people think, and I know you think you can, that's the way maybe students are as well. I don't know, maybe you can, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a little skeptical. I've been around the block too long. I've covered Costco. I shop at Costco. I don't know, can you stop people from bulk buying in America? I don't know, I don't think so. So there's a lot of headwinds, I think, in the rapid delivery space. I think they're evolving, they're changing. We'll see how it goes. It's the Wild West.
David, I would love to hear your thoughts in response to what Nancy said. Are you going to offer a bulk option? Have you had any scooter crashes? I would love to hear about some of the challenges with your model.
Yeah, no, we'd love to talk about that. So, on the topic of safety, that's why our color is orange. Not only is it my favorite color, it's the most visible color, and that's also why we use scooters. So we've experimented with e-bikes, and the reality is it's much harder to bail off an e-bike than a scooter. You can kind of run it off, but yeah, I think the first thing I did when we raised the Series A was recruit an amazing world-class legal and ops team to make training systems, reinforce helmet safety, navigational safety. Safety is a big part of kind of our DNA from the very beginning. But on the consumer patterns thing, like Oskar said, I think everything on Earth evolves. And some people like tomatoes, some people like potatoes. Some people will keep buying in bulk, I'm sure. And America is a society that has gotten very used to that. But again, how much of that is getting thrown away? The numbers don't lie. A third of it is going straight in the trash. Because human beings can't effectively predict what they're going to eat over the course of a week. You know, like, what are you going to eat next Thursday? Good luck guessing that. But they buy assuming that their guesses are correct. And when it's inevitably wrong, they have to throw the food away. If we can live in a world where it's more efficient, it costs less time and less energy to get the same thing delivered in the instant that you want it, before your TV show's even over, then you don't have to make that guess. And when you don't have to make that guess, you don't have to throw the food away. And human beings are always going to go the path of least resistance. So whatever's more convenient, but convenience is not always an antithesis to the environment or an antithesis to safety. It's about how you execute. And in this game, execution is king.
That's a fair response. Bobby and Oskar, I would love to hear, speaking of consumer habits, how you guys are adjusting, sort of thinking about this moment where I think a lot of people are itching to get outside again. I know a lot of people who are maybe doing grocery delivery less often. I don't know if that necessarily bears out in your numbers, but how do you keep this habit that people built during the pandemic and ensure that it stays?
So I can take that first. One of the things that we do, and I think you mentioned that earlier in terms of working closely with the stores and stores being partners. But I think what our focus is on the quality of the service. So we're working closely with the merchants to make sure that inventories are accurate, that they're packaging the orders well, that they're integrating in their store, promoting to their customers. That's a big part for us, is working closely with the store. But for us, it's growth more through acquiring merchants. That's more of our strategy than trying to force a habit. I think COVID did a lot of things for people, and obviously the world is very different now. And people are working remotely, and people learned how to cook because restaurants were closed and they had no choice. But it was very habit forming. So we're still seeing, I think, 5 times more sales per store location on our platform. It's sizable, but you're not gonna. It's hard to force habits, right? So I think COVID did a lot of that. So our strategy is really just working closely with the grocers, helping them build a better business, and then bringing more stores online.
I'll say, I always tell the team, I'm first and foremost a human being, and refuse principally to get depressed because some graphs are down because people are going outside again after COVID. With that said, January was our biggest month ever with margin, and most markets are at peak. Some markets had tremendous peaks back in Q2 due to almost military-style restrictions in Latin America, and definitely, are people buying less online groceries? Yes. Is that bad? No. And with also the industry this year, I think is down in the U.S. I saw some stat that was down 10% January over January, but we're as Uber's grocery unit, we're a very small fish in a very large pond, and so we're growing very, very fast, and we'll grow a lot this year in many markets because we're just tapping into what I mentioned before, Uber's existing consumer base and really leveraging that unique global platform. So I'm happy that people are in some households, outside going to the grocery stores again. That's awesome.
That's definitely an encouraging answer. Nancy, are you hearing from people who want to go outside in stores again? And do you think that is going to be a risk here? Because I think on one hand, people are going outside, and I agree with Oskar that that's a really good thing, and that might, sort of take away some of the traffic. But on the other hand, I think people are getting really busy again, and a lot of these services are about convenience. So do you think it's one way or the other in your reporting?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen a slowdown. I know I personally am not doing as much delivery as I did, during the pandemic. But I think, I love what was said just right now. It's hard to force a habit. And I think what the pandemic did, with everything else in digital, it accelerated, everything that using this to order everything that we need and have it delivered to our doorstep, or have it or go and pick up. I really want to emphasize the fact that I think pickup is often ignored. I know, and it's convenient for folks. I know I use pickup a lot now, more than as a consumer more than I did before the pandemic. And I was a grocery delivery user before the pandemic, but what happened was the pandemic also forced all these companies to accelerate their offerings. So you see more pickup, you'll see native delivery, white label delivery, which is great. So I think there's room for everything. I think the number one thing is convenience. You know, Amazon has taught us that convenience is what everybody demands and wants, whether that's in the form of instant delivery in an hour or going and picking it up myself, or 10-minute delivery on campus, which, by the way, as having a daughter in college, I applaud that service because I've had to order her groceries from 3,000 miles away because she doesn't have a car. So thank you very much. I think it's it's convenience is king, and whether that's in the form of instant, rapid, pickup, delivery, it's everywhere, and it's kind of great to have all those choices, isn't it?
I think you bring up a really great point. You've made it twice now about pickup, which I think is a really smart one. Do any of you offer pickup, or how are you thinking about sort of alternatives to delivery?
So Uber Eats offers pickup on restaurants as well as grocery stores, not in all markets, and it's not very significant yet, but it's definitely something that we think is part of being this platform connecting retail to consumers, and it's a no-brainer. And in Latin America, the markets I know most about from being a consumer and living there, I mean that it's not a big thing. In Europe, it's very important part of their online grocery behavior. So definitely agree that it's real. Pickup is real.
So we have pickup. We always have pickup. Before COVID, we had, I think, 8% of our orders were pickup. And then as COVID in March and April of 2020, it grew to 25%. So I don't know exactly why a lot of people wanted to pick up if it was a pandemic. Like, why would you want to go in and get it? Like, we had the same amount of lead time for the orders. But now it's pulled back to like 8% again.
An exciting thing to do during the pandemic was maybe just to get in your car.
Yeah, I was trying to say, it's just exciting to get in your car. I know, I was like, oh good, I can go out and pick up my groceries.
But that's interesting that you've actually seen a decrease, because I think that the intuition that I would have at least is that people want to do pickup because they're out and about, right? And they're already doing something else, and they're nearby the store, and it's more convenient. But that's really fascinating that you've sort of seen a decrease in that behavior for whatever reason. David, are you gonna do any pickup?
Yeah, so we have pickup today. It's definitely a minority of the orders, but I've always seen Duffl as being an omni-channel experience, kind of like companies like Sweetgreens or I think going to the grocery store now is like an activity. People like it and they enjoy it, but I'm not against like walking. I think human beings are designed to walk. My perspective is that packing groceries is just not the best use of everybody's time, and everybody spends weekends packing groceries. And I think when you build a better system, you can kind of centralize that and do it for everyone. But if you want to take a trip to the local Duffl store and pick up your order, there's nothing wrong with that. There might be almost a connection between convenience and laziness, but I beg to differ, that's not true. I think convenience is about opportunity cost of time. And we don't farm our groceries. We don't plant things in our house, at least most of us don't, but that doesn't mean we're lazy. It just means we'd rather stroll in the park with our dog or spend time with our kids, and that's not bad.
I think that this touches on one last question that I want to ask you guys, because I think we have another minute. And that is, how are you thinking about the impact that your startups are having on the communities that you operate in, right? I think like a big thing people are thinking about post-pandemic is what kind of cities do we want to live in, what kinds of communities do we want to live in, and we are in a car hellscape. As much as I love Los Angeles, it's a city that's sort of built around cars. And how do you think about the sort of trends of these ghost stores, these ghost kitchens? How do you want to sort of integrate the community? I think, Bobby, you're probably a really great person to maybe start here, because your business is sort of around keeping these small markets open. So can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Yeah, so what you might not know is that the majority of e-commerce is going to the big stores, big chains, right? So if the independent grocer has 25% market share in retail and going into the store, they might have 5 or 10% of the online market, right? So a lot of them move a little slower to get online. For us, my dad has a grocery store in Brooklyn, he still has it, I grew up working there. It's very important for me to help the small businesses, and I think for cities, small businesses are really, really important because they produce 64% of new jobs in those cities, in those markets, opportunities for people that might not be employable in other places. So I look at it more on our end in terms of helping small business, helping them modernize, helping them get online. That's really important for the city. Other things that we do, by the way, is that we're also helping with food accessibility and getting people online ordering for different groups, whether you're a coterie or a wall, different categories. So I think we're helping facilitate the city in a lot of different ways.
What, founders want to chime in?
I would say plus one. We started as quite a simple service, few grocery stores in every city, and now there are thousands of different merchants, brands, not branches, hundreds of thousands of branches, that large and small retailers, and the share of non-supermarket orders in our big markets is approaching 50% in the this year, about 30% now. So plus one of that answer in terms of merchants. I also think there are many other efficiencies that companies like ours can contribute to over time with efficient routing and batching, but I'll leave it at that for now. But I do think, I would also say that as a startup, you might, and I think you have in your DNA, you're maybe a little bit more conscious from the beginning, but as a startup, you might struggle to have the resources or the mind space to be trying to improve the societies you're operating in. And one of the great things about Uber is there's an enormous amount of people at Uber that are really thinking about how are we a good corporate citizen, how are we going to lead on green and having being carbon neutral, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just one of the additional benefits of joining Uber for us, from my perspective.
Thank you guys all so much for being here.